I just wanted to make a quick rambling on Joker 2 and why I think it's a misunderstood movie. And I think it's a good movie. I think people are hating on it for the wrong reasons because they misunderstood the first movie and conversely the second movie. So the second movie opens up 2 years after Joker 1, with Arthur Fleck in Arkham Prison in the trenches. He's in the shithole part of the prisons where you gotta shit in a bucket and eat slop, and the guards are abusive. I wanted to talk about the opening animated sequence though, because that's foreshadows the entire movie. The animated intro shows the Joker, aka Arthur Fleck, in his full getup. His shadow is playing tricks on him, and at one point in the animation, his shadow locks him up and steals his makeup and clothing, and his shadow goes and forces a kiss on a woman, and then the shadow goes and beats up and basically kills some people. And then the shadow gets up on stage with the face paint and makeup and the clothing, and it's singing and dancing and reveling in the attention. When the police come and finally go to apprehend the shadow the shadow returns to Arthur Fleck and puts the clothing and makeup on Arthur Fleck. When the police arrive, they beat the shit out of Arthur Fleck. So Arthur Fleck gets punished for something the Joker did. And that's the opening idea they put in our heads. So Arthur Fleck's at, Arkham Asylum, whatever, in the shithole. And he's clearly got some kind of relationship with the guards. He tells them a joke and they'll give him a cigarette. But it's clearly the power dynamic is a pity, kind of like a disgust pity thing, where they send the inmate Ricky over, and they tell Ricky, Arthur will kiss you, because Ricky says he never had his first kiss before. And without saying anything, Arthur stands up and gives Ricky a nice peck on the lips, giving Ricky his first kiss. And the guards laugh and give him a cigarette, etc. So, passing by a music group one day, Arthur sees Lee, and the prison guard he has a semi-close relationship with, Jackie, puts him in the music hall to see, to be with Lee. And it's kind of suspicious at this point that Jackie just randomly puts him in the music hall, and later on it's established that Lee, wormed her way into the asylum via committing herself. She's a rich girl from the rich part of Gotham with a rich daddy and mom, and is basically a bored serial killer groupie who she's seen the Joker movie. She knows of Joker and his killings, and she's obsessed with him and the idea of Joker. So she worms her way in the asylum and gets close to him. And basically, she's also a psychology major, so she knows how to pull at Arthur's heartstrings and start a relationship with him. And his attorney is trying to argue to the courts that Arthur has multiple personality disorder, one being the Joker and one being Arthur Fleck. Two people that he snaps in and out of. Two separate people. And I think it's the movie makes the case of, can Arthur win the case with him being multiple personality? Can he get the insanity plea? Or Harley seems to makes Arthur think he can just walk out. Harley makes Arthur think that he has a chance of walking the streets, and while Arthur probably doesn't believe this, he plays along with this fantasy that he is Joker, and he's got these followers, and Harley's his partner in crime, and where they're gonna get out of there and build a mountain out of a molehill, and but it's all a fantasy. So Arthur kind of gets this high. He has sex for the first time with her. He's got a bit of a relationship. He sings the song, for once in my life, I have someone who needs me. He's got a bit of that high he had from the first movie. He feels some semblance of happiness and hope, but his lawyer, she knows that this is a fantasy, and this is not going to help him. This is only going to harm him. And while she's wrong in certain ways about the multiple personality thing, she is right in terms of he needs to snap out of it. Harley. So typically, Joker manipulates Harley, and all the dynamics we've seen, Joker's always the power in has the power in the dynamic. But in this case, Harley actually has the power, because Harley is the manipulator. Harley is the one that gets Arthur to embrace the Joker side. Arthur had basically abandoned the Joker concept. He was a man who snapped. He had one day where he basically snapped and put on his best clown makeup and outfit, and was going to kill himself on TV, but decided last second to kill Murray Franklin. And so that got him to cult status, and all the fans, millions of people witnessed it. Millions of people thinking he was the Joker, And conversely, a lot of the audience members think, oh, this is the Joker. But by movie 2, Arthur has basically he's just a sad, lonely, mentally ill man in prison that's semi-abused by the guards. And his lawyer wants to make the case that it's two separate personalities, but it's not. I didn't think it was from the second the movie started. After seeing the first one multiple times, Arthur doesn't have two personalities. Arthur is Arthur, as he says by the end of the movie. Arthur wanted himself to be introduced as Joker because Murray Franklin called him a joker when he was making fun of him. It wasn't a name for himself. It was just a statement that on Murray Franklin being cruel to Arthur. But he accidentally got the moniker of Joker, and millions knowing him as the Joker who killed Murray Franklin on TV. Never had a girlfriend and was more than likely a virgin. So Arthur Fleck is still being humiliated and abused by this corrupt system. He's in court, on a court that's being live test. They say in the movie it's the first in this universe. It's the first court session to ever be live televised on TV. I think that's the same thing the Ted Bundy thing did, where it's the first court session to ever be on. It's a kangaroo court for entertainment, and they're sitting there saying he's a sad, lonely girl. He's a virgin who's never had a girlfriend. They're humiliating him in court. So in the moment, screw this, he stands up, fires his lawyer, and says, I'll embrace this idea of Joker. Everyone's saying I'm Joker, so let's go for it. I feel hope. But the thing is Arthur is not a psychopath. Arthur is not a sociopath. Arthur is not a bad person. Well, that's up for debate. But we'll say Arthur is not an evil person. Arthur does not want to hurt innocent people. Arthur killed those 3 people on the subway because they attacked him. Arthur killed Randall because Randall gave him the gun and got him fired and got the police on him and caused the shooting. If Randall never gave him the gun, none of this would have happened. So Arthur blamed Randall for basically everything. So Arthur killed the people who attacked him. He killed Randall. and he killed Murray Franklin in the midst of a full-on mental health episode. Arthur was on the Murray Franklin show to kill himself. Arthur was practicing how to shoot himself for days before. He went on stage to shoot himself on TV, and in the heat of the moment, flipped it and shot Murray. So we have 3 murders that were just fairly justified. We have the murder of Randall, which was second-degree murder, Then we have the Murray Franklin, which again I think was second-degree murder. He did not plan these murders. They were spur of the moment mental health episodes, essentially. It's still objectively bad moves, of course, but anyway, my point is Arthur's not a bad person. He's not deliberately evil. So when he puts on the Joker makeup in court, and he listens to Gary Puddle's testimony that he murdered Randall in front of Gary. And in the first movie, we see him spare Gary. And we go, oh, see, Arthur's not a bad guy. He spared Gary and let him go. See? But and we forget about it fairly quickly. We move on to Arthur dancing to music and hype. The movie makes us feel hype after that. They intentionally put us in a good mood. With the epic dancing down the stairs and the music and the smoking and the partying. But this movie tells us Gary has his own story. After Gary witnessed this murder, he's terrified. He just witnessed a brutal murder, and he's traumatized. He goes to the police and he has to tell them his story, and he's a little person. He doesn't have a lot of power, and Arthur, he says in the movie, Arthur was the only one who was ever nice to him at work. So to see the only one who was ever nice to you snap and murder your coworker, and he feels so powerless. He says he's afraid. He was never afraid before. He can't sleep. He can't work. He can't eat. He's deeply traumatized from this experience. And when Arthur hears this in court, Arthur tries to put on a show. He tries to act like the Joker in court, but when he hears how deeply he traumatized Gary, he slips up. He can't go over all of his notes. He wrote down a bunch of notes. He wrote down to make fun of his height, to make fun of his accent, etc. But he only was able to make fun of one thing. You see him in the movie, he's got a notepad full of things, and he crosses out only one thing. And after hearing Gary's testimony, Arthur starts to slip up and stumble and mutter over himself a bit. He's hurt Gary. He hurt his friend. He traumatized someone that was innocent and didn't deserve it. He was the abuser in this scenario. He was the person that caused harm, not any other way around. And Arthur knows what that feels like, to be hurt, to be abused, to be traumatized. So, court ends that day, and during court, Arthur had called the guards at Arkham Asylum fat and stupid. That's where he comments exactly. So when he gets back, 3 of the guards take him into the showers and degrade him and insult him. They wipe the makeup off, and they push him down in the showers, and it's heavily implied that they rape him. And I think it's 100% a rape scene, and I'm very surprised that people online seem to think that these guards did not rape Arthur. They strip Arthur of his clothes. Arthur says, "Aren't you going to buy me a drink first?" Then they push him to the ground, and one of them yells, "Get his britches off." And they go to rip the britches off, and Arthur starts screaming, and very traumatized sounding no's, he's screaming no. And they've hit Arthur before. It's clear in the movie that they've beaten other prisoners. They're abusive guards. It's clear that they're abusive. So the movie makes a point that this abuse is different. It's not the typical abuse. So it's very clear that they rape Arthur, because in the next shot is them dragging him through the cells, and it's a shot on his legs and with his underwear on again. and bruises all over his legs. And his friend from earlier, Ricky, says, what did you do to him? You know, they did something different this time, and they throw him in his cell, and Arthur's basically lifeless, and he listens as they murder his friend Ricky, in the cell next door, and Ricky was defending him. He sees how the Joker persona still leaves him powerless against the system. He sees how the Joker persona has hurt those innocent people around him. It hurt Gary. It got Arthur to be sexually abused again. Arthur is a sexual abuse survivor from when he was a child. He was heavily abused as a child, physically and sexually. They stated in the movie. And for him to be sexually abused again, 30 years later, is no doubt extremely traumatic. And so this Joker persona, this Joker idea, has caused Gary and countless... We only saw Gary's testimony. Millions of people watched Murray Franklin get his brains blown out. No doubt kids were watching that show. No doubt, who knows how many innocent people witnessed the horror that day and were deeply affected by it. To a normal person, seeing someone die like that is a very bad thing. So Arthur sees how much he's traumatized others. He sees how it's affecting him. He's being abused, and he had it bad in prison, but he didn't have it they weren't raping him in prison before. But so the Joker persona hurts others, it hurts him. It got his friend Ricky killed. Ricky was defending him and it got him killed. The Joker does not bring laughter and joy to the world. The Joker is only causing harm. So the next day in court, he confesses and says, there is no Joker. There's no two split personalities. It's always been me. It's me, Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck, the man who was created by a corrupt, abusive system. He was a boy that was adopted by a mentally ill woman who was sexually abused him. The government took him out and they put him right back in with the abusers, and he grew up, and by circumstance everything's taken him to this spot here. He never wanted followers. He never was trying to be a symbol. He was never trying to be the Joker. He was always just Arthur Fleck. So when in court, he denounces the Joker because he sees the harm it brings to himself and those around him. And he can't live in this. He knows he's never walking out of there. The fantasy of him and Lee having a family at his old house. She told him at one point, I bought your old house so we can live there when you get out. Arthur doesn't want to live at the place where he was abused. He doesn't want to live at the place where he was with his mother, who caused his mental issues and his abuse. It's evil. It's evil to put someone back into their traumatic home. They don't want to go back there. It's so disconnected and such a fantasy that they would be able to have a family and live on after Arthur committed 6 murders. And so Arthur denounces the Joker. He confesses it's him. And as they're reading out I'd like to note, I think it was, I don't know if it was hours later or the next day, but his followers in Harley walk out the court. You know, they're done with him after they realize he's not going to be the symbol they want. But as they're reading off his guilty verdict later on, the car bomb explodes the courthouse, nearly killing him and killing many others. And a couple of his followers who... Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but they take him and he runs away from them, not wanting anything to do with them, and he runs back to the stairs he used to ascend and descend, and finds Harley there, and tries one last time to, he asks her, "Don't you want me? I thought we were in love." But Harley was only in love with the Joker. She never loved Arthur for him. She only liked the fantasy of the Joker that killed those Wall Street guys and killed Murray Franklin and is the leader of a movement and this badass clown prince of crime and chaos. She was relishing in the fantasy, and Arthur had a dose of reality from Gary and Ricky dying and him being assaulted. He realizes that's all a fantasy, and she can't accept. She doesn't want to play the game anymore. She leaves. She didn't want him for him. She didn't like Arthur for his personality, or she didn't know Arthur, and that's just another soul crushing moment for Arthur to realize that she never loved him. She never loved him. He thought she loved him, but she didn't. And the first woman he's ever had sex with, the first girlfriend he's ever had, the first female attention he's ever had in his life, and he's back to where he was. He has nothing and nobody. He doesn't even have the followers he gained from the first movie. But he knows that he is Arthur Fleck. He's not confused on whether he's Joker or not anymore, whether he is this figurehead that these people were looking up to. So the cops come and take him back to Arkham, and things are going as usual. He's watching TV when he's told he has a visitor. Then, as he's walking, a young inmate, a follower of his, one that's been watching him from the beginning, likely says, "Can I tell you a joke?" A psychopath walks into a bar, and he sees a clown there, a famous clown. And he says, the clown's drunk and pathetic, and the psychopath says, "Hey, I used to see you on TV all the time. I'm a huge fan. Can I buy you a drink?" And the clown says, "If you're buying, I'll have whatever you'll get me." And the psychopath says, "How about I get you what you fucking deserve?" And the psychopath kills Arthur Fleck. He stabs him to death. And Arthur falls to his side and has a flash. In his head, he has a flash of Harley shooting him. And in his final moments, the one thing he can think of is how his one love betrayed him in the end and didn't love him at all, and it wasn't real. But there's one thing that Arthur dies knowing, and that he's Arthur. He knows he is Arthur, and he told the world that he is Arthur. He is not he's not a bad person. He's not the Joker. He's not someone that kills innocent people for fun. He's someone who suffers from extreme mental issues and needs help. So this movie continues the tragedy of Arthur Fleck. It's a statement of what would realistically happen to someone like this. Were it to happen in real life. In real life, these kind of people don't rise to the fame. They don't become the clown prince of crime. They are tried in court, and Arthur had the choice of dying he could either die in the electric chair as Joker, or die as Arthur due to natural causes. If he would have stayed on the course of playing the Joker in court and antagonizing witnesses and playing the crowd, Arthur does not have what it takes to be the quote-unquote Joker. He can't lead a criminal empire. He can't lead thousands of people. So if we go through the options of he plays the Joker in court, let's say they break him out. He can't be that leader. He would no doubt go right back to jail, or it wouldn't go right. So Arthur more than likely would get tried and executed by the state. Arthur would die in the electric chair as Joker. He would die reveling in a fantasy of pain and suffering and murder. Instead, Arthur chooses to denounce this and chooses Arthur, who was supposed to bring laughter and joy to the world. And in a way, he did for the psychopath at the end that killed him. That guy was laughing. But anyway, I just wanted to say all that. I think it's a deeply misunderstood movie. The musical segments were just to show this fantasy that Harley Quinn and Arthur were living in for a bit. And I liked the music. I thought some of it sounded pretty good. Very sad movie. Very, very sad. Especially if you enjoyed the character of Arthur. It's made me so depressed to see this child abuse survivor get abused again as an adult. Sexually abused, it's just the worst. And for him to die in the end and to lose his love and to... Arthur's just the first movie and second are both of him being abused in a corrupt system. They really... The system has failed Arthur. But yeah, I just wanted to say all that. If you've listened to this, thank you for listening. And it's not a bad movie. It's objectively a well-made movie with a plot line that makes you think rather than gives you what you want. And I don't think it's necessarily a FU to fans. I think it's a tragic continuation of Arthur Fleck's story.